Chapter 10. Revenge. A dead boy awoke one night. He tore through the ground, fingers cracking and tearing as he broke through the earth. Finally free from his tomb, he stood and stared at his open grave. The tombstone read, "Our son and brother, gone too soon, in loving memory." This did not register to the dead boy, for he could not recall his loving memory. He began to walk slowly, but with purpose. He knew his destination. It was the only thing he did know. He had a purpose to rise this dark night, and he would not stop until it was done. The dead boy walked and walked, searched and searched until he came upon a home he recognized. He went to the door and tried to open it. Locked. He went around to the back door. It too was locked. He stood and stared at the home, waiting. He had all the time in the world. Suddenly, a truck drove up to the house, its bright lights shining in the dead boy's wide eyes. A door opened, and he could hear music playing. Moments later, the truck went quiet, and a young man climbed out. The dead boy watched him closely, his head cocked to one side. His eyes were wide, but appeared sightless, as if he were paralyzed in fright. His mouth hung open slightly. He looked as though he were about to speak. The young man began walking towards the back of the house. It appeared as if he were sneaking in as well. The dead boy moved out of the shadows, startling the young man. "What the hell?" the young man shrieked. The dead boy advanced towards him, wide-eyed, mouth agape, and body halfway decomposed. The dead boy was almost the same age as the young man. They could have been friends. "How can you be here?" the young man shrieked. "You're dead! I saw you! You're dead!" The young man's eyes bulged, and he wanted to scream, but the shock was too overwhelming. He urged his body to make a more determined movement than slowly backing away. He was staring at a walking corpse. He had to run, and run he did, into the woods behind his home. Faster, he thought. He needed his legs to move. The dead boy pursued the young man. The dead boy didn't really need to run because, again, he could wait. He had all the time in the world. The young man ran and ran until he was out of breath. He was shaking so badly he could barely hold himself upright. This isn't real, he thought. He must be dreaming. There was no way this was really happening. He looked around trying to see anything. He saw nothing. The moon was bright, so it gave him more visibility. He started to walk slowly, trying not to make too much noise. But it was so quiet that every step he took sounded like a hammer pounding a nail. He decided to take a few steps and wait. A few more steps, then wait. After a few minutes of that, he decided he must have been dreaming. He had smoked a little pot tonight and had a few beers too. Maybe the pot was laced with something. He couldn't believe how real it seemed. He began walking a little faster, but without fear. He got a little closer to his home and thought he heard a twig snap. He turned around quickly. He didn't see anything. He waited. A few moments later, he decided it was safe to continue his journey home. He rounded a large tree that was just a few minutes away from his house and found himself face to face with the dead boy. This time he did scream. He tried to run away again, but the dead boy grabbed him by the arm. The young man tried to pull away, but the dead boy pulled harder. The young man felt his shoulder snap. He cried out in pain and fear. This was really happening. He was really trying to escape the gruesome clutches of a dead boy. "What do you want?" the young man yelled. "Just tell me what you want." The dead boy looked at him, eyes wide in surprise, mouth agape, and flesh decaying. He didn't speak, just bored a hole into the young man with his hideous stare. The young man began to cry. He begged, pleaded. The dead boy said nothing in reply. The dead boy grabbed the young man's weakened arm as it hung, dislocated, and he began dragging him back through the woods. The young man wailed, "Please, I'll do anything you want. Just tell me, please, what do you want?" The young man cried again and again. The dead boy continued his slow pace in silence. As they approached the cemetery, the young man began to take one last shot at escape. He grabbed the dead boy's hand and bit down hard. He pulled back dead flesh and spit it out immediately. The dead boy did not even flinch. "Stop this!" the young man cried. "Just stop this! Tell me what you want. I swear I will give you anything." The dead boy stopped and slowly turned to look at the young man. He grabbed the young man by the collar and pulled him up close to his face. The young man could smell his stinking flesh and see the dead look in his eyes. He had never felt more terrified. "I'm sorry," the young man said finally. The dead boy continued to hold him close, staring at him. I'm so sorry," the young man stammered. It was just a joke. I didn't know that was going to happen. I swear. I am so sorry. I know I should have been there to get you out. I got drunk and I passed out. When I woke up, I tried to get you out. I swear I tried. But it was too late. I never would have done that to you. You know that. You know me." The dead boy remained silent. "Scotty!" the young man shrieked into the face of the dead boy. The dead boy continued to stare at him, no emotion at the sound of his name registering on his rotting face. "I didn't mean to leave you there," the young man pleaded, choking on his tears. "We've all done it, you know? Stay alive. It's just a stupid game. I swear someone always comes to get you in the morning. No one has ever died. It's my fault. I know. I'm so sorry, Scotty." The dead boy continued to drag the young man toward the cemetery. "Please, you must believe me," the young man continued. "I swear I would have dug you up, but the others knew I passed out. They could have come to get you too." The young man continued trying to rationalize with the determined corpse. "Why didn't you go after them?" the young man asked, confused. "Why me? I was your friend." The dead boy continued making his way through the cemetery, dragging the young man until he reached the open grave. The young man cried out again, "I'm sorry, Scotty! What do you want from me?" The young man squeezed his eyes shut as he sobbed uncontrollably. The dead boy stopped suddenly. He turned and grabbed the young man by the collar with both hands. The young man's eyes flew open. The dead boy lifted him up off the ground and pulled him close once again. A tear slid down the dead boy's face. "I want my life back," the dead boy said in a raspy whisper. He dropped the screaming young man into the open grave. The young man's head slammed against the hard lid of the coffin, knocking him semi-unconscious. The dead boy shoveled the dirt on top of the young man as he regained consciousness. The young man began to inhale dirt, coughing, gagging, and screaming. The dead boy shoveled and shoveled until the grave was smooth and the young man's screams could no longer be heard. A dead boy sits beside his own grave tonight. A slow smile lingers across his rotting face. His dead eyes dance in the moonlit night as his dark thoughts turn to the others.